What's on, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Ross, I like games, and today, well, I say today, I kind of mean yesterday, right? Yesterday there was a Vault Tour over in Albany, over in New York. And since we've had a Vault Tour, we've had a winner, and since we've had a winner, I think I need to get back to showing you Vault Tour winners the day of or the day after the tournament. We got a little behind for a little while. Let's try and fix that, shall we? Now, I'm afraid the posts over on the Facebook group only show the guy to be Luke D, but congratulations to Luke D, and his deck Galaxy Tycho Mana Aerosmith that went and took down the Albany Vault Tour. Now, it was a survival tournament, blah, 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 but this is a deck that got him through Top Cut, alright? So this is what we're counting. This is a deck that's been given a power level of 5. So, the thing we need to mention here is it's a Call of the Archons deck. Now, what was really cool, all 3 sets were represented in the top 4, but it was still a Call of the Archons deck that won. And it was still a deck that came in with an SAS rating of 100% that got the win. That does not mean it's a guaranteed amazing deck, but we are seeing more and more that Archon Vault Tours are almost exclusively won by decks that have 100% rating on SAS or near as, darn it. I'll let you read into that what you will. What we have is very interesting. It's not a Shadows deck. This is not a deck that has Shadows in. However, we can deal with that. Let's start off looking at the logo suite. It is a Logos Dis Untamed deck because actually we've got 2 copies of Effervescent Principle. And this is one of the reasons we can get away without it being a Shadows deck. General rule of Keyforge is we tend to play Shadows because it's got great Amber control. But the reality is it doesn't matter what deck we play, we just need some Amber control. Effervescent Principle, when you play it, each player loses half their Amber, rounding down. You gain 1 chain. Well, if your opponent's got lots of Amber and is about to forge and you don't, oh look. This will stop them forging. It's not the only Amber control in the deck, of course. Still in Logos, we've got a copy of Dexter that can capture an Amber. That's quite nice. And then over in Dis, we've got a copy of Charette that captures a couple of Amber. And a couple copies of Pit Demon that's got an action that will steal an Amber. And going back into Logos, we've actually got Interdimensional Graft as well. Now, Interdimensional Graft is a phenomenal card, one of the very best cards in the game as far as I'm concerned. Got an Amber bonus, and when you play it, if an opponent forges a key on their next turn, they must give you their remaining Amber. Which means if they forge a key for, say, 22 Amber, they've got to give you the extra 16, assuming they're forging for 6 Amber. Yeah, it's a pretty good card. So sticking in with Logos then, what else do we see? Well, we've got Lab Work that lets you archive a card. And archiving's always nice. You stash a card for later when you really need it. And then it's Logos. And what we generally see from the good decks is that the houses do what they're supposed to do. What does Logos do? Efficiency? Yeah, this hits the efficiency pretty hard. We've got library access. Every time you play another card during your turn, you draw a card. Though remember that has been errated, so it gets purged when you play it. Phase Shift that lets you play a card from out of house that turn. Pretty good. And a Wild Wormhole that lets you play the top card of your deck regardless of what it is. Do be careful, this can backfire here. For instance, there is Gateway to Dis in this deck that destroys each creature and gains you 3 chains, but you've got to play this a little bit sensibly, right? If you're really worried about your board, if you really can't play any chains, if you know it's in your deck, don't play Wild Wormhole. If it's in your discard pile or your hand and you know you can't hit it, don't worry so much about it. And 2 copies of Mother. Mother lets you draw an extra card at the end of your turn. 2 Mother let you draw 2 extra cards at the end of your turn. And when you combine Library Access, Phase Shift, Wild Wormhole, and Double Mother, you've got a pretty gosh darned consistent deck. We also then have a copy of Positron Bolt, which lets you deal 3 damage to a flank creature, 2 damage to its neighbour, and 1 damage to its other neighbour. So from one side it goes 3, 2, 1, and gives you an Amber bonus, nice for cheeky damage. And if we got Lab Work, we might as well have Sloppy Lab Work, which lets you archive a card and discard a card. But of course, you can discard a card that is not from your active house, so essentially you have one fewer card in hand, and you draw an extra card at the end of your turn. So Logos is supposed to be efficient, give you drawing options, little bit of archiving, etc. That is absolutely what it does. This is supposed to be disruptive, and this is an extremely disruptive deck. I mean, straight off the bat, right, we got Control the Weak. Control the Weak gives you an amber bonus and allows you to choose your opponent's house next turn. Yeah, that's pretty gosh darn disruptive. How about Gateway to this? Destroy each creature, gain 3 chains. We mentioned it earlier, but I do feel it bears repeating here. Of course, if you don't hit it off a wild wormhole, then you're just playing it at the right time. And yes, it gives you 3 chains, but you can play it and then play the rest of your creatures. If your opponent's got a big board and you don't, yeah, fine, you've got to take the chains. But bearing in mind, if you've got like 2 Mother out, being chained is not as bad as it is in some decks. But here's the real kicker. I told you there's 2 copies of Mother, so you draw 2 more cards at the end of your turn. There's 2 copies of Succubus, so your opponent draws 2 less cards at the end of their turn. Having 2 Mother and 2 Succubus in the same deck is kind of taking the mick, but in a way that I absolutely love. Stealer of Souls. After an enemy creature is destroyed fighting Stealer of Souls, you purge it and gain an amber. It's not amazing as disruption, but it's alright, it's quite nice. I briefly mentioned Charette earlier. Lets you capture 3 amber when you play it, and Pit Demon has got an action that steals an amber. That's kind of nice. Not to mention, Poltergeist allows you to use an artifact controlled by any player as if it were yours, and then destroy it, and you get an amber bonus at the same time. So we've got ways to get rid of creatures, but we've also got ways to get rid of artifacts here. That kind of sounds like a lot of fun here. And what's really weird is we've actually got some alright amber generation. I've already mentioned Stealer of Souls. It's not amazing, but it's an option. But we've also got Hecatomb. And Hecatomb is good. Now, what Hecatomb does is it destroys every disc creature, giving you 1 amber for each creature you control that was destroyed this way. Well, there's 6 disc creatures here. So potentially you can play Hecatomb, destroy 6 of your own creatures, gain 6 amber. That's enough to forge a key. Plus you get an amber bonus just for playing it in the first place. We've also got The Terror. If your opponent has no amber, you gain 2. This is a phenomenal option if you go first to drop on turn 1. Because your opponent definitely won't have any amber, they haven't had a turn yet, and you just play this down, get a creature on the board and gain 2 amber. It is a wonderful, wonderful turn 1 option. And then we've got 2 copies of Library of the Damned. Gives you archiving. It's not needed in this deck like it is needed in some others, but it allows you to set yourself up. Archive that effervescent principle so that you can pull it out later on. Archive library access and phase shift so you've got both those cards ready for that big explosive turn. And let's not forget that if you're archiving 2 cards, that means there's 2 fewer cards in your hand, which means you draw 2 more at the end of your turn, and if you want those cards, you can still get those cards. You can still just pick them up at the beginning of your next turn anyway. You've just got 2 fewer cards in hand, which means you draw 2 more at the end of your turn. Now, in terms of Untamed, back in Call of the Archons at least, what we're really looking for here is amber rushing. We are looking to get as much amber as we possibly can. Now, the one thing that is missing here, we don't have a key charge. There is no key charge in this deck, boo hiss, etc. But there's an awful lot of good amber rushing stuff. Straight off the bat, we've got a copy of Hunting Witch. Hunting Witch is that creature whereby when it's in play and it is a static ability, it works immediately. While it's in play, every time you play another creature, you gain an amber. Then, of course, we've got 2 copies of Dust Pixia, vital ingredient in any amber rushing deck. When you play it, you just get a double amber bonus. But if you got Hunting Witch down, that's free amber. Bearing in mind, we've got a decent amount of archiving in this deck, so we can set this up a bit more easily than we would in other decks. Oh yeah, and 2 copies of Nature's Call, which gives you an amber bonus and returns up to 3 creatures to their owner's hand. Now you can use this to get your opponent's creatures off the board. You can also use it to pick up Dust Pixie. Now, bearing in mind, if you've got Hunting Witch down, every Dust Pixie you play gets you free amber. So there is absolutely a possibility, and I am convinced that the owner of this deck has pulled this off, especially with the archiving tricks. Hunting Witch is down, Dust Pixie, free Amber, Dust Pixie, free Amber, Nature's Call for 1 Amber, Dust Pixie for free Amber, Dust Pixie for free Amber, Nature's Call for 1 Amber, Dust Pixie for free Amber, Dust Pixie for free Amber. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. I should mention there's also a Nepenthe Seed here, which lets you return a card from your discard pile to your hand. Annoyingly, pre-errata, this would have been phenomenal with library access. You play library access and then immediately replay it with Nepenthe Seed, so you're drawing 2 cards every time you play. Clearly, we couldn't actually have that. That was too good. That's why we had the errata. But pre-errata, this deck would actually have been even better, if you can believe it. But that would potentially allow you to get another Nature's Call. Things can get silly quickly with this deck. There's also a copy of Taliga. Each time your opponent plays a creature, you gain an Amber. So an anti-Hunting Witch, if you will. More in your opponent's control, less likely to absolutely crush, but still a very, very nice option that can get you a whole bunch of Amber. Now, there are a bunch of other cards in there that aren't just for the Amber Rush. We've got my boy Snufflegator. Love me some Snufflegator. We've got Cooperative Hunting, which lets you deal 1 Amber for each friendly creature in play, divided however you like. It's alright, get some good cheeky damage down. Vigor gives you an Amber and lets you heal up to 3 damage from a creature. If you healed 3 damage, you gain an Amber. Again, we're not talking over-the-top stunning card, but it's a very nice card nonetheless. And then we've got 2 copies of Niffleape, which lets you hit through Taunt and Elusive. Again, it's not an absolute... I should mention Snufflegator has got Skirmish, so when you start the fight, you don't take any damage back. These aren't the cards that are going to win you the game, but they're quite nice. But really, this deck wins because all 3 of the houses are on top form. Dis is super disruptive. Logos, I mean, to be fair, the double effervescent printable is nuts. But outside of that, you've got really good draw and efficiency. And then Untamed has got those dumb Amber rushing tricks in full force. This is a deck which is a Vault Tour winning deck. And now that we look at it, we can go, yeah, you know what? We can see why. But at this stage, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to know what you think. Have you got an opinion on this deck? Have you played with it? Have you played against it? Let me know in the comment section. Go nuts. Be nice. And then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at the Wossy. That's where we talk Keyforge and a whole bunch of other games. And do consider checking out patreon.com/PTCGradio, where you can support the channel, get some weekly bonus podcasts and all kinds of other fun stuff. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time, would ya? Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching Wossy Plays.